right, welcome back, everybody. I'm glad you are all with us today. I now would like to introduce you to our first presentation. This is the 9 Keys to Navigating a Career in Fashion, brought to you by the founder and executive director of Boston Fashion Week, Jay Calderin. Jay not only is an amazing author and motivational speaker, his work has also graced the pages of Vogue and Elle magazines. Jay is a director of creative marketing and the instructor at the School of Fashion Design in Boston. Jay is a veteran in the business, and his presentation is something that we can't wait to hear. I know I can. So Jay, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes.
As you heard, my name is Jay Calderin. It's an honor to be a part of Boston Caribbean Fashion Week. So like everybody else, I've been looking for help navigating all the issues we've been facing lately as an individual, as a citizen, and as a professional. I think it helps to break things down, take on one thing at a time. That's why today, in light of how overwhelmed many of us feel, I'd like to introduce you to 9 ideas. I call them keys because I think they open doors to new ways of thinking about all of our challenges. So I think that navigating your fashion career successfully is about getting back to basics. But in light of everything that we're facing right now, these keys also lend themselves to reimagining our professional path. So kind of taking something that's normally negative and trying to turn it into something positive because we can make course corrections right now. So I wrote a book called What They Didn't Teach You in Fashion School. And together with my first book, Fashion Design Reference and Specification book, they serve as bookends to training for a career in fashion. Fashion Design Reference and Specification book is kind of a primer to the industry, to kind of introduce you to the industry. What They Didn't Teach You in Fashion School is more of a survival guide. And although this book was created for fashion designers in mind, I believe that the thinking behind it would serve almost any professional. So these keys can help you customize or, in the case that we just mentioned, reinvent your career. And I also like to call it building your fashion practice. Kind of the way a doctor or a lawyer builds a practice. I think fashion designers or fashion professionals need to think about their careers in that same way. I put together some brief excerpts from the book, as well as some insights from a professional development course that I teach at the School of Fashion Design. And that's what I would really like to share with you today, because I think it's a good jumping off point for any questions you might have and to get you thinking about things, but piece by piece, as I mentioned earlier. So the first thing I recommend to any aspiring fashion designer is training. Without it, you're going to be hard pressed to build the kind of foundation you're going to need to sustain a career in the fashion industry. That being said, even at the best, with the best of intentions, you can't fit everything you need to know about being a fashion designer into a traditional school curriculum. Beyond core skills like sketching, pattern making, and sewing that are most commonly associated with studying fashion design, there is a wealth of information and experience that a fashion designer needs to acquire in order to have a sense of agency over the direction of their own career or business. The purview of a fashion designer has become so complex that very few can afford the luxury of focusing all of their time and attention on making beautiful clothes. Today's fashion designer needs to build a practice. In fashion design, the word practice serves as both a noun and a verb. It describes the system you build and how you exercise your craft within it. This is an introduction to the skills, strategies, and mindsets required to do 9 things, the 9 things we're talking about, the keys. So number 1, managing the making process. Learning how to position products, services, and ideas. So all of that has to do with the making. Number 2, Cultivate and maintain a consistent flow of creativity. I don't know about you, but there are certain times where the muse is just not there. And there are ways around that, ways to kind of cultivate being curious and being inspired. Number 3, continue developing professionally. You don't want to stop after school. You want to be always learning. Number 4, build support systems. You need people around you to help. It needs to be a village. Number 5, addressing business fundamentals. And we'll talk about this in a little bit, but this is really key because we can't forget that fashion is both a way of expressing yourself creatively, but it's also a business. And then number 6, negotiating the industry. We have to learn as much as we can about the industry to learn how to negotiate different relationships and how things work in the industry at the moment. Number 7, implement strategic brand and communication plans. You don't want to just post, you want to plan to post, right? When we're talking about social media or rolling out a campaign to promote something. So you want to think long term. Number 8, creating user experiences. This is something that we do in stores, with fashion shows, or in the case of like just recently with Boston Fashion Week and here with Boston Caribbean Fashion Week, create experiences that kind of engage us, whether they're virtual or in person. And then number 9, you want to have a culture of innovation. You want to be a normal thing, that you're always cultivating new ideas and thinking in fresh ways. So each one of these chapters in the book is intended to be used as a catalyst, a jumping off point for more research, for experimentation, and for customizing your career. So remember, there's not just one way of doing it, but these become the filters you can use to kind of think about how all of these things apply to you and what you want to do. There's a great quote by Ray Bradbury. Learning to let go should be learned before learning to get. You know, we're kind of trained to acquire and to get things, but it's really important to start fresh and let go of things. So the key to getting the most out of this information is letting go, bursting the bubble. You want to let go of any preconceived notions you have about what will be expected of you, as well as what you may be expecting from the industry. Both things will limit your opportunity. You want to be more interested in knowing differently than knowing more. And nothing here is meant to serve as a one-fits-all definitive answer. These are just starting off points. Every topic speaks to the idea that a fashion designer is an independent entity and that they will continue to evolve. You're going to grow, you're going to change. For instance, it's just important to see things from the perspective of an employer as it is to reflect on your needs as an employee. Being that there's so much about a career in fashion to consider, and that those considerations will change at different points along the way, my hope is that these ideas will serve as a resource that you can return to again and again. So let's get started. Key number 1, manage the making. Tom Ford said, fashion is much more collaborative than one might think. You have to have an idea and a vision, and you have to communicate that vision to a team of people, and you have to create an environment that allows those people to give the best that they can give. So making is at the heart of being a fashion designer. Upon completing any kind of fashion design program, one might feel as though they've got the making part down. But the truth is, once those skills need to be put into practice outside of an educational environment and within industry, it gets very real because there's just so much more that goes into it. And you want to be really kind of engaged with those details, putting that kind of effort into it. Christian Dior said, in a machine age, dressmaking is one of the last refuges of the human, the personal, the inimitable. And Carla Fernandez, a designer from Mexico, says the future of fashion is handmade. Like, we don't want to forget, there's so much hype around fashion. We don't want to forget that it is about the making and that beautiful garment or accessory or image that you create. So entering into the process of making in this environment, in this type of environment, means having a really clear idea of where you, what you want to do fits. So where does what you want to do fit into the culture of fashion? An understanding an understanding that you are solving problems, and really importantly, that you are serving the needs of others. Yes, you are being creative and being, creating these beautiful objects and garments, but ultimately they're to be worn by someone else, and it's going to be solving a need of theirs. So keeping that in mind will just improve your whole process. Also having an appreciation for the value of those sample making, the sample making process, like really appreciating, not rushing through what it takes to create something new. Also a respect for each of the steps in the process. So, even something like at the end of the process, the steaming, the pressing, all those kinds of things that finish off a garment beautifully and present it in a great way. A lot of people want to rush through those things, and this can help kind of get into, again, having the ultimate garment, but with the ultimate presentation. And you want to also be able to select the methods for producing the garment that best suit the situation. Sometimes that means you can spend hours and hours and hours creating beautiful, couture quality type things. And sometimes that means that it might be a faster or less expensive process. And you need to decide which one of those fits you and your customer. Giorgio Armani said, to create something exceptional, your mindset must be relentlessly focused on the smallest detail. Hubert de Givenchy said luxury is in each detail. So it's those little things that make it really, really valuable. All right, so key 2, cultivate curiosity and creativity. Anna Wintour said, one doesn't want fashion to look ridiculous, silly, or out of step. But you do want designers that make you think, that make you look at fashion differently. That's how fashion changes. If it doesn't change, it's not looking forward. And this is key, because to serve a thinking customer, you want to be a thinking designer and be sharing, all the elements that go into taking fashion in a new direction. Fashion school can be an ideal place to celebrate and encourage creativity. It is definitely easier to sustain the spirit of creativity with that safe environment. What's really a lot harder is to build systems and routines that keep us curious, that help us exercise our creative muscles once we're on the job or building a business. Because then, quite frankly, other priorities come into play. So we may neglect that creative side a little bit and cut corners and things like that. And that's just really something you want to try to avoid to keep the level of work that you initially created the same. And also burnout is a very real problem in the workplace, especially creative workplaces. So the fashion industry is constantly demanding something new. What do you do when it seems as though there's nothing new to give and you need to deliver on demand because your client is expecting it or your boss is expecting it? A designer that can reconnect with the essence of the experiences that call them to a career in fashion and initiate that process on a regular basis can make all the difference. I want to think back to why you're doing this, why you love it so much. The idea of, seeing a customer look really happy in this garment and feel really empowered. But you can build a bank of stimuli, things that get you going, things that you think are beautiful. And it'll allow you to always have something at the ready when you need to create. And you can go deeper into these areas than you ever did in school, because it's not a deadline like my homework is due next week. You're building your aesthetic as a designer, so you can cultivate this in an ongoing way. So there are many ways back into the creative foundations for a fashion designer. Thinking about the craft of fashion, putting theories into practice, putting content into context, And a sense of play and creative collaboration is also a lot of fun. So reinforcing our connections to these creative fundamentals will prevent them from deteriorating, and returning to them will be as different each time as we are over time. Key number 3, develop professionally. Designer Paul Smith very wisely said, nobody cares how good you used to be. So we don't want to rest on our laurels, right? We want to be able to move forward. So there's always something new to learn. Learning new things should feel like a calling and not a chore. However, human nature has a way of allowing us to become complacent. Once we feel we put in our dues and achieved a measure of success, we sometimes get a little lax. So this can prove to be the beginning of the end of a robust and rewarding fashion career. It may not be overt, but a designer is always being assessed by their clientele, the industry, and the media. Whether it's a conscious act or instinct, designers are being judged by how they measure up against current standards. Continuing to build a broad base of knowledge and experience is one of the most valuable investments a designer can make in their future. A great quote by Shunri Suzuki goes, "In the beginner's mind, there are many possibilities. In the expert's mind, there are a few." So if you're always thinking like a beginner, you are open to things. So being a lifetime learner should include both traditional methods as well as customized learning strategies. So, but whatever it takes, you should be thinking about always feeding, again, not just your creativity, but your intellect and developing as a person as well as a professional. Many designers overlook what I think is the most valuable inheritance that the industry provides: fashion history, the history of our business and of the designers that have come before. Every idea, strategy, and business model that has come before has the potential to provide a designer with the tools for advancement. So study the past. Professional development also demands action. Part of a designer's job involves predicting what will succeed in the marketplace, and taking more educated risks is a distinct advantage. Vera Wang said, "Don't be afraid to take time to learn. It's good to work for other people." I worked for others for 20 years, and they paid me to learn. I think that's an incredible lesson to share. And when it comes to history, British educator Louise Wilson said, "A lot of people believe that you don't need to know the history, and that creates newness." I disagree. We should always be informed and then destroy it. So you want to know your history so that you can work from that place, and again, not be just repeating things, but really using them as jumping off points to truly create something new. So key number 4, fashion journalist Susie Menkes warns, as the fashion carousel spins faster and faster, the concern is that while the stream of newness never runs out, there's going to be a good deal more of crash and burn among designers in the future. So you don't want to get kind of chewed up and spit out by the industry. You want to always be able to maintain your creativity and your... So learning from experienced professionals is a tremendous advantage for those who avail themselves of it. So asking for help does require, though, that you acknowledge your need as well as their value, and that you're clear about the boundaries of the relationship you are looking to build. Figuring out who and how to reach out to them requires more than just working up the courage to make the ask. A little research and planning go a long way to gaining the respect of those who you wish to learn from. Taking the time to research, collect, and consider your thoughts, and to craft your questions and select a time, a place, and a manner in which you want to make your initial contact is key. Putting the time and effort into figuring out the specifics of what you're looking for brings you one step closer to establishing a really successful relationship with a mentor or an advisor. Bill Gates says, everyone needs a coach. It doesn't matter whether you're a basketball player, a tennis player, a gymnast, or a bridge player, or I'll add a fashion designer. You need people to bounce ideas off of, and someone with experience to kind of help you see further ahead than you might on your own. Key number 5, getting down to business. Marc Jacobs said that the customer is the final filter. What survives the whole process is what people wear. So I'm not interested in making clothes that end up in some dusty museum. So we want to remember that the whole point of this is to connect with people and have them wear your stuff. So business is the bridge between the designer's creative process and the consumer. Whether a designer is directly responsible for performing all the varied and necessary tasks associated with the operation of a business, or they partner with someone else to run it, they should be acquainted with some of the basics for doing business. For instance, how leadership roles are defined, how funds are raised, how distribution channels are selected, how products are positioned in the market, how transactions are facilitated, and how transparency is assured. In terms of being a leader on the job or in your own business, Simon Sinek says, a leader's job is not to do others, it's to help others figure out how to do it for themselves, to get things done, and to succeed beyond what they thought was possible. Okay. Key 6, negotiating the industry. Raf Simons says, fashion is such an octopus. You're connected to so many people, suppliers, pattern makers, production teams, marketing teams, vendors. The list goes on. And so you need to consider how those relationships work, how you build them and are successful with them. So at every stage of the process, a designer will encounter challenges that have less to do with the work and more to do with the people involved in creating it or constructing it or consuming it. So you want to remember that the people always come first. Negotiating obstacles that have the power to distract them from or completely derail projects, otherwise poised for success, is an imperative. So you want to know what kind of problems you might have. You want to try to learn how to anticipate them and be prepared. Always have a plan B. Designers will be obliged to confront issues of influence, the dangers of deal making, and the problems associated with perception, politics, workplace dynamics. We know, for instance, with everything that's going on in politics, everything is a matter of perception. And managing all that as a creative person is a big job. You'll be tested by the complications linked to like criticisms and cult followings and customer expectations. So all things you're going to have to deal with and navigate. Moreover, designers are going to need to face the ongoing struggle to communicate clearly and avoid misperceptions by developing really effective language and imagery. So this is pictures and words. Even if you're not sort of a natural writer, you want to have someone like that on your team. If you're not great at putting beautiful images together that tell stories, then you want to get someone like that on your team. It's very important that you think about, any kind of thing that you may be lacking, you can bring into the mix in terms of building a great team. Key number 7, planning strategically. Diana Vreeland famously said, there's only one very good life, and that's the life you want, and you make it yourself. In order to take full advantage of resources and be prepared for opportunities, plans must be made. So with objectives in place, you will want to prioritize the steps that will get you there. So always try to figure out what's more important. The impetus for the development of a strategy could be a creative vision. So you have this vision for something you want to do. It could be carefully reasoned because it makes sense. Or it could be in response to a situation, like in the fashion industry is the pivot to mask making, right? People weren't buying ball gowns, so designers started switching to what people needed. Strategies may also just emerge organically. It just might be the right time for a great idea. A brand can be used like a compass, helping to pinpoint the direction of your communications, drive the development of collateral, and determine competitive strategies for the marketplace. Strategic planning will be an advantage during the decision-making process when deciding where to produce your product or how to map out the path of a career or a campaign, and which platforms are best to serve your objectives. I mean, a good example there is social media. Not every platform serves, rolling out a new collection or a new line. It will help in the creation of realistic timetables too, and provide insights into how and when to change course when things need to change. Oscar de la Renta said, be the designer of your own destiny. And Carolina Herrera adds, fashion never stops. There's always a new project and a new opportunity. Key number 8, end your dreams. So fashion designers must be conversant in the new language of fashion, which is entertainment. Fashion has always enjoyed an element of theater, but the stakes have grown exponentially over the years. While true fans are happy to simply admire and appreciate a designer's work, most want and expect more, much more. Consumers are looking to be charmed by the clothes, as well as the experiences built around them, whether that be a retail location or a fashion show or a video. And although this is now the norm, engineering entertaining interactions is by no means second nature for many designers. So again, another place where you can team up with someone creative in that particular area. So preparing for these kinds of exchanges means acknowledging that an audience arrives with their own preconceived definition of fashion, just the way we do. So bridging the gap between the two depends on how quickly we can communicate concepts, how authentically we can interact with our audience, how specifically we're able to customize experiences, and in the end, how captivating our performance can be. Business of Fashion's Imran Ahmed said, look at the way sports, music, and film have become driving forces in popular culture. Fashion is the fourth pillar. And now a little warning. So perhaps the most dangerous myth of all is that you should follow your dreams. It is terrible advice. It is a real passive position to willingly put yourself in. Now, dreams are wonderful things, but you don't want to relinquish your power and be led around by a dream. So I'm going to ask you to please stop following your dreams and instead start preparing for them. Act like that dream is inevitable and build towards it. Learn the things you need to know, create the things you need to create, and so on and so forth. Joseph Campbell said, the creative act is not hanging on, but yielding to a new creative movement. Awe is what moves us forward. So that means like when we discover new things and get excited about new things, that can create innovation and make us more creative. And last but not least, key number 9, initiate innovation. Nicholas Negroponte asked and answered, where do you get new ideas from? The answer is simple. Differences. Creativity comes from unlikely juxtapositions. The fact is that no matter how prepared you are, you have no idea where your career will actually take you. There are too many variables. The good news is that solid fashion training provides you with the skills that are transferable across many different disciplines. Some that you haven't even been exposed to, and others that haven't even been invented yet. Whereas planning for the unknown is all but impossible, you can take a proactive role in creating a climate in which you will have the tools, the experience, and the mindset to innovate and meet the future head on. Some key components of that strategy include breaking down silos that separate different disciplines or industries, collaborating to investigate new ideas, teaming up with a scientist or someone in tech, exploring the potentials of new frontiers in science and technology, building relationships with the cultural sector like museums and galleries, and cultivating a professional conscience, like thinking about, for instance, environmental concerns, and preparing for the jobs that don't exist yet. You know, getting skills, as I said earlier, that are transferable. I love these two quotes about collaboration. First one from Raf Simons: "Fashion has a long interest in collaborative situations." And Helmut Lang said, "I was never so directly inspired by fashion. It was always came from somewhere else." So I just have one more message for you about innovation. Always be innovating you. Thank you.
All right, all right, all right, Jay. Thank you so much for that amazing presentation. Let me just tell you, I'm so sorry for the beginning of the intro. I was just so excited to hear what the presentation is about and all the gems about the drop. So I was like, let me just give you the spotlight right away so you can do your thing.
No problem.
But again, that was amazing, amazing. I have so many questions for such little time that we have.
Okay. Yep. I'll do as best I can.
Yeah, so definitely, like, one of the things that you mentioned the stakes of fashion, right? And that it has been growing throughout the years. And, you know, what we're seeing right now in this politically divided climate, and we're seeing how brands are presenting themselves in these situations and how they're, you know, how they're coming out to their customer base. And for you, I mean, what are your thoughts about how these fashion brands are coming about it? And what are your thoughts about what they can do better? Because, you know, the people who are watching this right now, they could be the next big fashion brand, you know? And so we don't know how long situations like this are going to linger for. It could be worse in the future.
Right.
But so for you, you know, what steps or what are some advice that you can give to these future major brands, these people, these entrepreneurs, or to look forward to in the future?
Well, I think we learned right away, like at the beginning of lockdown and things like that, where celebrities and influencers were kind of going about it their normal way,
right?
You know, referring to their lives. And for a lot of people, that came off really not relevant. You know, they weren't connecting with the audience in a real way. They were relying on kind of this illusion that fashion and celebrity kind of creates. Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, we need to really be aware of the situation. And the only way we can really do that is to slow down and not jump the gun and start to post or, you know, or think about their business in a normal way, but really say to themselves, where do I fit now? Kind of what I said about, you know, whatever you want to do, where does it fit and how does it fit into what we're doing? So, for instance, fashion, some fashion designers pivoted to the mask making, right? Which was very like, oh, this is a need and I know how to sew and I can make that happen. So that comes across as very authentic because it's real, it's in the moment and it's speaking to something that's needed. But then, you know, if you just really love the play and the dress up and all that kind of stuff, it may be a little while before you want to go there. You know, you go there when the time is right in terms of saying, okay, people are exhausted. They need a little fun now. So, but you give them that time because if you jump the gun, you can come off as very either insensitive or just not connecting with what's happening.
Right. And, you know, for you, I mean, last year was your 25th anniversary for Boston Fashion Week, right? And I have to say that was an amazing experience. And one of my favorite things that I've seen you do is, especially for Hispanic designers, and you're amplifying the Latinx voice and culture. And you also mentioned culture as an important component to this. And so for you, especially now, you know, we're learning about Black representation and what that means, and how the garment are these products a representation of the people who are buying them, and you know how for you, how have you been able to do that without having to jam the message down people's throats? Because there's some people who are just like, oh, yeah, I want to wear what I want to wear, but I don't want to have your message down my throat. But you do it with such ease. You know, talk about that, because you know, people really need to learn how to, you know, empathize and understand what their customer is looking for without having to drive the message down into their throats. But you've been doing it very, very well to us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's certain things, people are going to be passionate about, and I think that's great if it's coming from a real authentic place. That's really wonderful. But it's not something that's offhanded. Like, for instance, I have always wanted to do more, like posts, for instance, like, because Fashion Week happens right in the middle of Hispanic Heritage Month
Right.
every year. So I've always wanted to do stuff, and I've done little things. I've done events, things like that. But this year, we didn't have the events, live events and things. So I said, I'm just going to make a commitment to expose Latin designers, just to show how many incredible ones there are. So for the 30 days of Hispanic Heritage or Latinx Heritage Month, I posted every day. Now, it wasn't something that just happened organically. I had to make a conscious decision to say, I'm going to commit to this and doing it well and doing it in a way that's just offering it up. Like there was no message there. It was just, oh, look, it's Hispanic Heritage Month, and look at all this incredible talent. And, and we did like models on Mondays that were Latina, had Latin heritage. And then we did designers throughout all the time. And then when it came to Fashion Week, we did local designers so that, it had the personal touch. So we tried to create it almost like a campaign. And then, I hope to do other ones as we move forward for all different types of things. Women's heritage, have like a whole month of incredible women designers throughout fashion history and things like that. So I think you have to care enough to do the work and also to connect, because, for instance, with Native, Indigenous peoples, First Peoples, Native Americans, I remember, connecting with designers from that community and asking, because there's big issues about appropriation and things like that, and you want to connect with the community. I asked them, a designer, well, how do young designers, tap into what you're doing and get inspired? Because once they discover it, it's going to be really exciting. And he said, ask, reach out, learn about the community, communicate with the community. And I think that really lends itself to every community, whether you're a part of it or want to be an ally or, whatever the situation is. Immerse yourself. Don't let it be a superficial thing. Let's just get on the bandwagon for a week and then drop it, but really let it be something that becomes part of us. That we immerse ourselves in the culture and we celebrate it. But we celebrate not just us kind of borrowing it or putting it on ourselves, but celebrate the people who are making it, the culture that it came from, because then you're honoring it. You're not just appropriating it.
Yes, exactly. I hope you guys are taking notes, because this is very, very important. This is relevant to the times. Very, very relevant to the times. And also what I thought was very, very important that you mentioned was building systems and routines. And so, I mean, for you in this industry, I mean, COVID, you mentioned, how was your pivot? Because right now, I mean, we are redesigning, we're reimagining, we're trying to revitalize our situations, our businesses, our livelihood. And for you, how was this for you, your experience? How have you been able to pivot thus far in your journey?
Right. Well, I have to be honest. We were just about to announce at the beginning of March, plans for Fashion Week in the fall and getting everybody revved up. And of course, lockdown hit, and I had to stop. I couldn't force myself to make an announcement. I was like, it's not time. Like, first of all, this just hit, and who cares, about what's happening or what we think should be happening in the fall. And then I started to hear what was going on, like with students, not having their graduation fashion shows, and that led us somewhere. And then, really trying to understand that this wasn't going to go away right away. People were hoping by the fall we'd be back to normal. And, I feel like I waited long enough until I felt like I can make an informed decision. And that's what we decided to go online and then to make the focus, of fashion design students. And I think we need to do that. We're quick to react and we want a fast, easy answer. And the truth is, you need the time to sort of sit with it. And even over the summer, as we were developing it, I wouldn't let myself get too married to a single idea. I'm like, oh, this is a great idea. This will bring us forward. But if it changes course a little bit, I'm ready for it. And just having that mindset of saying I'm ready for change can help, because change is not easy. I always tell people change is good until it's happening to you. Then all of a sudden you're like freaked out, So I think that's important to do, to sit with it, but then also be willing to kind of ride it a little bit, to say, okay, that's happening. Oh, that's happening. We need to move this direction a little. And I think that's the reason we were lucky enough to have it be a successful week, is that we let it be supposed to be. We guided it. In some cases, we directed it a little bit. Maybe even a little push here and there, but but it wasn't so much like it has to be this one way. I think you have to ask yourself, what does it want to be? Designers do that in front of a dress form with a piece of muslin. They drape fabric and they go, ooh, that's creating a nice curve, and are informed by that, rather than trying to kind of force the fabric to do what it wants, what the designer wants.
Yes. And I'm sad that we have to end our conversation, but how can people follow you and your work? I mean, like I said, like, you have books. People can actually read and follow up on what you're doing. So, let us know how can we do that before we end.
Sure. Three main ways. Obviously, social media. I'm on all the platforms, and I think all of them are Jay Calderin. So Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. The other is the books on Amazon. You can put my name in there and all my books will pop up, and including the two I referenced today. And then I also teach. So the course that I teach based on the book is called Professional Development for Fashion Professionals or Fashion Designers. And that's at the School of Fashion Design School of Fashion Design in Boston. Any of those ways, you can reach out to me, you can ask questions, but the social media channels, teaching, and the books are probably the easiest way to get to know what I do and also reach out.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. Again, Jay Calderin, thank you so very much. I wish you the best going forward. I know we're going to rise above this. I mean, this is just an experiment, and you did it. You did it.
Well, you too. You guys did too. Caribbean Fashion Week is fun, so congratulations.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you.